Hello, Schenectady, and welcome to Your Schenectady Stories. I'm Marlene McTeague from Your Schenectady, and this is our monthly podcast. In this episode, episode 2, Nourishing Hope, Working Toward Food Justice in the Electric City, you will hear from 3 amazing community members who are working every day toward food justice here in Schenectady. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our panel. First, I'd like to introduce you to Aideen from the Electric City Food Co-op, who has various roles in this project. Hello, Aideen.
Hi, Marlene. Thanks for having me here. Do you want me to do my intro now?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay,
yes.
So I'm a food manufacturer. We've got a family-owned business in Schenectady since 1945. I joined the Electric City Food Co-op board in 2019, and then stumbled upon the formation of the Food Council of Schenectady County, and have worked, with Rebecca and Christy and a bunch of really committed folks in Schenectady that are trying to change the food system in Schenectady. So I'm really excited to be here and share some hope and optimism.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Rebecca?
Hi, so I'm Rebecca Henriksen. I'm the Farm to School Project Manager for Schenectady City School District. So not a lot of people know what that means, really, but the Farm to School movement is a national movement. It's a lot of my work is funded by the USDA, and it focuses really on cafeteria, classroom, and community, what we call the 3 C's. And a real central pillar of my program is food access and food resiliency for our students. The majority of our students, over 3/4, live at or below poverty level. Many of them live in neighborhoods that do not have regular or easy access to a grocery store. There's only one grocery store in Schenectady, really, for a city of almost 70,000 people. So I'm do a lot of things, including work with school gardens and things where kids practice growing their own food, learn how to grow their own food, and also do a lot of tastings and getting local producers into our cafeteria and into our classrooms.
Wow, that's a lot. Thank you so much. Christy?
Hi, I'm Christy Milligan. I'm the Director of Grants and Community Programs at the Schenectady Foundation. And it's a long path to get to the Food Council where we are today and where we all met, but we kind of started our work in food security during COVID. The foundation is known as a convener in the community. And so we convened a group of all of our nonprofit partners and tried to figure out how we could best serve the community in this crazy time. We didn't understand what was happening, and we realized that what we could do together was make sure everyone had access to food. And during that time, once the immediate need was sort of handled, we at the foundation were able to step back and kind of say, wow, this is different than we thought. Like, food security is a bigger issue than we thought. And what is the real problem? Like, what is that, down at the roots, what's the issue? And we need to figure out how to fix that. And so we started doing things like offering grant programs and things for transformative ideas to change the food system. And out of that it was lots of different ideas and research and reading and learning and connecting. And we came up with the idea that we needed to bring a food council to Schenectady County. And that is when we all met and started just doing this really awesome work, figuring out how we can really dig in and fix the food system, or change the food system, really, in Schenectady.
Wow, that's excellent. And, we all saw that tremendous need during the pandemic and how it only took a couple of paychecks for people to be in a situation where they really needed help. So tell us more about the Food Council.
Well, there's a lot. It started out when we opened our first round of, I think at the time we called it healthy, or access to healthy food for all, or something like that. We had an organization come to us with an idea. They had asked for funding to do a regional food council. And we thought that was a great idea, but they were serving, I think it's 8 or 13 counties or something. Yeah. And we thought, that's awesome. There's clearly a need. This is really great. But while they're putting all of that together, what can we do here? There's got to be something we can do at home. And so that's when we went full force, just trying to figure out, what is a food council? What do they do? What do they study? How are they funded? Who's involved? Like,
now I'm going to ask you to answer all those questions.
Well, we're working on those answers, but that is kind of how it was born. And then we just started kind of learning and snowballing and saying, okay, well, we need a few more people involved and we need a few more connections made. And, we all have it's been amazing. I mean, Rebecca and Aideen can tell you too that the group that we got together, we call ourselves the steering committee of the Food Council. And that has really just been so amazing. I mean, I just can't even believe how, a lot of times there have been issues where kind of like the silos. Everyone works in silos and we're serving our group of people and you serve your group of people. And this steering committee, we've all come together to say, we're serving all the same people and they have the same issues, access to, they have different barriers and different challenges. But if we put all of ourselves and our ideas and our connections and our resources together, we can figure out how to serve all of them. And so it is a continuously learning process, but that's kind of where we're at right now. Surely we can answer more questions, but that's the basis of it.
That's really excellent.
I think just the acknowledgement that there's already people doing the work in our community, right? And part of the goal of a food council, part of its role is to bring all those different orgs and people, because some of them are individuals, some of them are organizations of various sizes, and to bring them together because there's strength in the many, right? Many hands make light work. So there's a lot of need. We need a lot of people all working together.
And I think the ethos of the Food Council is we're really trying to gather people that are in this food space or that are embedded in the community already doing this good work. And then, how do we remove some of these silos and bring this connective tissue together so that we can all kind of learn from each other? Like, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We know that there's good people doing good stuff in our community already. So how can we as a group collaborate and help further some of those organizations and folks that are already doing so much good?
How many people sorry, Rebecca. How many people serve on the steering committee?
I think there's about maybe 12 to 15 on the steering committee.
Oh, wow, that's a lot.
The larger Food Council is made up of about 55 different people and organizations, and they're in every aspect, really, in our community. It's the United Way, it's the Food Bank, it's the Food Pantry, it's SICM, it's food manufacturers, it's the co-op, it's the school district. It's really a broad spectrum of people that are really like in the space, in whether it's food or whether it's food justice or whether it's community, involvement. And to break that group down, we got a group of 12 people that committed to, meeting more frequently and kind of starting to foundationally understand like where we fit into this whole thing. And as we started to get into the whole process, we learned that we are actually only one of 16 food councils that exist in just upstate New York alone. Post-COVID, there are close to 400 food councils that have formed all across the country. So I think that there's a real need that communities recognize that they have to change the way that they're thinking about food and the way we move food and about emergency food, because it's no longer just a food emergency. Like, it's not just, lack of food or poverty or, hunger in our community. There are systemic reasons that all this stuff is happening. So we really figured that, the more that we can collaborate with the other food councils that are across the region, the more we can learn. And some of those are a little bit further along than we are. So, we've got a lot of learning to do from some of their practices. So it's been a really great process. So the smaller group is just starting to establish itself. We've got 3 work groups that are formed. We had our first press conference and event last month, and it's really just kind of putting it out there that, hey, we've been doing this work for probably close to a year now, but now it's in the spot where it's time to bring it to the community and really start getting input from the folks that live in our community.
That's awesome. So let's talk about what it looks like on the individual level. A lot of times food insecurity can be a silent and a secret thing in families, right? So how do you identify the people who may have a need, but it isn't obvious?
Well, I think a lot of them self-identify. And I also just want to say I live in Schenectady. I'm a part of the community. My kids go to Schenectady City Schools, and I have been on SNAP and on WIC. WIC and SNAP really got me through their early childhood. Without them, those programs, I would not have had enough food to feed my kids. And then we're lucky in our school district in that we have a universal free lunch and breakfast program, which now is, we're trying to get on a state level. There's a movement around the country to get universal free breakfast and lunch, just blanket. Doesn't matter if you're in a wealthy school district or an under resourced school district. So, some of us self-identify. Others, it's, working in a school, you see the kids who are hungry, you see the kids who are, ask a teacher for food, who ask their friends for extra food, who, wolf down their lunches, wolf down their breakfast. I mean, there's a lot of indicators. For many years, we participated in the weekend backpack program where certain kids kind of identified by faculty usually or by school administrators or school social workers would be identified as perhaps a family that might need just for those weekends when they're not getting free breakfast and lunch at our school buildings. They might need a little extra help for that child to get through the weekend. And now we're starting a program through our community schools where we're getting food pantries into all of our school buildings with non-perishable items. And those are put into parts of our buildings where they're not out in public. So, a kid doesn't have to feel ashamed, staff member doesn't have to feel ashamed, family member doesn't have to feel ashamed if they're visiting the building. They can go in and, help themselves to whatever they need. So I think people, I think there's those who self-identify, who are able to say, I need help. There's a lot of barriers for people saying, I need help,
Sure.
Unfortunately. So you have to combat that kind of, just for various reasons, people don't feel comfortable doing so. But, that's also the important work all these organizations do is, getting the word out, making it shame-free, right, to ask for help, because there's no shame in saying I need help, so.
Also, our friends and folks at the food pantries they're on the front lines, right? And they can tell you numbers and stats and details, like the amount of people that they're serving now and the numbers of meals that they're serving now, and the need, is just ever exponentially increasing. So like this is a real true problem in our community. And I think that, unless we really work together and kind of go to the community to try and help build partnerships and get people involved in this, really we're going to have the powers that be dictate something that's not best served for our community. So really, I think the biggest key that I've learned through talking with some of these other food councils is they've spent a lot of time doing the work, going into the communities, building bridges, having conversations with folks with lived experiences to really find what some of these barriers and access issues are, So to that extent, within the Food Council, we have 3 organizations that are actually doing survey work in Schenectady now. So the Electric City Food Co-op is one, the food pantries, and the food bank. So the 3 of us, are doing our own survey work, and they're each a little different because we're looking at it from kind of different lenses. But we have all sat down and met together and agreed to share our surveys, share the results of those surveys, and then plan work moving forward. Because really, a really holistic look at our community and on hunger and access hasn't been done since like 2019. So, post-COVID, everything needs fresh eyes and everything needs a reexamination of how we're doing things. So I think that, working together, some solution will become more apparent. And it's not going to be perfect, and it's not going to be something that works for everyone, but it will be something that is based in the needs and wants of the community. It has to be. Like you can't have these decisions made by where these resources get spent and where money goes within the city or county or community with, folks that are so far removed from the problem.
Right.
And, even doing this work, we're somewhat removed from the problem. You know what I mean? So, we really have to lean into our community and find out folks that can help us, build this plan.
That's why I think it was such an excellent hiring decision on the school district's behalf to hire you, who's experienced food insecurity. That was a really wise decision. And I love that we have people working to solve this problem who have actually experienced what it's like to be on the other end of it. That's really great. Can you talk a little bit about the leadership at the school and how your program has developed? I know you're doing a lot of different things over there.
Well, so we're very fortunate to have Superintendent Soler now, and he's just, I have to say, I think he's amazing at really seeing that we need to be here for the students and their families and our families, that we cannot take a top-down view anymore of our students and our school community, and that we're all part of the same community, and that because of all of our systemic issues that exist in Schenectady and New York, across the country, that more and more schools serve so many needs. And so, he saw the real value in the community schools movement, where schools are really seen as one of the main hubs of a community, and that if the schools can offer services like food pantries, like medical clinics, like clothing closets, parenting classes, support groups, things like that, that it will strengthen not just the surrounding community and neighborhood and city, but also the schools, and it will improve educational outcomes. And I started really with my farm to school work as a parent volunteer. Someone at the elementary school that my kids attended, that my youngest still attends, Zoller Elementary, they knew that I was a gardener, that I had, my grandparents come from a farming background in Italy. I grew up growing my own food in Rochester, New York, which is super similar to Schenectady. And so they were like, hey, could you take over this space and maybe turn it into a kid's garden? I was like, all right. And, 7 years later, here I am. And I built this enormous garden at Zoller with a lot of help. It wasn't just me, of course. And we've planted an apple orchard there that we hope to have it as a community orchard eventually once it produces enough. We do maple sugaring. I do that on 5 different campuses where kids learn they tap the trees on their campuses.
Oh my gosh.
Process it into maple syrup. I'm just putting it out into the universe, and listeners, I would love to have a community sugar house in Schenectady and a community sugaring program, so hit me up. So, I was also a little bit pushy, so I came on the school district won a planning grant from the USDA Farm to School, really with the focus of summer enrichment program, which is a great program we do in the summer. And they were like, well, Rebecca does this, so why don't she come in and we'll help. She'll be the coordinator and she'll create curriculum and lead lessons and things. So I did all that, and then I was like, hey, if you want more of this stuff, and you want it, equity is really a main pillar of all that we do in the district. If you want this equity of experience, you need to hire me full-time in this role. So, and it helped. We won a big implementation grant from the USDA, so, I could justify some of it. But, our kids are brilliant, magnificent kids. They love these kinds of activities they do with school gardens. It really excites them about what they're learning. And plus, they get to grow and eat the food they've grown. And it's fresh and it's beautiful. And, I'm a strong believer it improves educational and health outcomes in our students and their families. Just last 2 weeks, we've harvested over 200 pounds of fresh produce that's all student grown at 3 different buildings. They've brought it back to their classrooms to eat. Some of them have brought it home. So, this is what keeps me passionate, and
I love it.
Going.
I love it.
That's where real change is going to happen. That transformational change is going to happen with the kids, and it's the kids, their creativity, their thinking, their young minds that are so just like open to new things, and they just don't take the status quo anymore, right? So like, how do you harness some of that and turn it into an educational opportunity around the food and food space, right? So I went to the movies for the first time like 4 years ago, and there were literally 20 minutes of just commercials for like sodas, cereal, candy. And it's like, I mean, what are we trying to do to these kids? You know, we're making them be early consumers of hyper processed foods, and we make access to super processed foods so much easier than we have access to healthy foods, right? So if we can work with the school district and help implement some of these programs that Rebecca's leading up there and have some educational opportunities around the food system and how we move food and kind of peel that curtain behind, you know, the big food. Like, if you're not paying for the product or service, you are the product, right? So that's like Facebook, right? Like you're not paying for that, but they're mining all your data and they're using it to target ads specifically to you. You're going to a movie and it's, you know, inundating young minds with like all this hyper processed stuff. You know, if you can kind of educate kids as to like how food is grown, why the soil is important, what the true cost of moving food, you know, globally is year round. I mean, we're just so used to having a plethora of choices in the supermarket, and we want what we want when we want it year round, and we've not given any thought to, you know, the impact on the climate or the impact on local farming if we don't support those things. So,
And I also want to say, like, just speaking from the district as well, is that, you know, our students are really on the front lines of all of these issues. They're on the front lines of supply chain breakdowns. They're on the front lines of catastrophic climate change impacts on agriculture. You know, our students are majority of color, so we're a global majority city, a global majority district. Our students are food insecure, not all of them, but over 3/4 of them. So they're already living at the impacts of these systemic weaknesses, right? And COVID really laid bare a lot of that, right? We all had that experience of going to the grocery store and not being able to find those staples or, you know, those items that we're used to seeing. So, you know, it's important that we create local resilient food systems. So, because I don't think things are going to necessarily get better before they get worse. So, you know, we need to prepare. We need to build, you know, just resilient systems that are as local as we can make them so that we're not so much at the mercy of, you know, when these bigger things happen.
I mean, I thought all that was going to be readily apparent after COVID. I thought we were all going to change the way we shopped. You know what I mean? Because it was just, it took so long for these massive supply chains to react to these empty shelves. And that's kind of what's happened in our food system. So like, there's been so much consolidation at every level. The retailers keep getting larger and larger, and the distributors keep getting larger and larger. I mean, there's really only 2 major national distributors that move food across the country. And that's just not good for the food system. Like, it's just not good for local growers or local manufacturers. And it's that relationship kind of resiliency within that food system that really can help us be more safe and more secure. And it's more sustainable. And it's going to be better for the environment. And, you know, we have to look at some of these real costs associated with moving food across the globe. You know, I mean, I always supported Small Business Saturday, but I was as guilty as anybody as ordering books on Amazon. And, you know, I do that. And then you look at a place like the Open Door, and that's like my favorite place on earth. And if that goes away, you know, I'd be bereft. So, and I have the luxury of being able to afford to buy it there. So I need to support that. But we have to do a better job of kind of educating people how important a local and regional food system is, because a lot of people just, you know, there is a lot behind it. And a lot of people don't necessarily want to know how the sausage is made. And I get that. But, you know, we in our community, and we can do our best to inform leaders and decision makers as to how to build a better food system and to be more resilient.
So is that one of the goals of the Food Council?
Yes.
This is kind of, we have a part of it that's really built in where it's going to be monthly or bi-monthly, where we'll have educational events. You know, it could be that we have a workshop or a panel of speakers, or we had our first one was a film screening, kind of to level set and get everyone on the same page of what's food security. You know, a lot of us are affected, things like that. But we want to educate people and help them to understand not only is their input really necessary for us to be able to do this work, but also to help them understand the situation better. They don't have to be at the mercy of, hey, Amazon wants you to buy this. Like, if you really understood, some people, you do the best you can with what you know. And if you don't, if we can help people to understand better or learn things that they weren't aware of, they'll behave differently if it's possible.
Sure.
And if it's not possible, our hope is that they will come to the Food Council, participate, be a valuable member, because everybody in Schenectady County is a valuable member. If they come and share, what is your challenge to getting food? What are the barriers you're experiencing? How do you feel about this? How do you access that? I think I might have gone a little overboard with expressing that when I read one of the newspaper articles where I was quoted like 7 times saying the same thing, but I feel like it's very important that
There's a lot of passion in this room.
Yes, because it's so important. If we don't, we are not about coming in and saying, we're going to fix this for you. It's about saying, let's all come together, because not one of us or even a couple of us can do this. But people with lived experience, or people who have family members who are food insecure, or anything that you have to add to this conversation is so important. And so it's super valuable for everyone to know that this is for them. And it's not just lip service. We're not just saying, oh, we care about what you have to say. No, we need what you have to say. And that comes from getting the information from them and educating if that's what they need or are interested in.
But it's a two-way street, right? It's all about communication. It's about having, your neighbors that care, having people in your community that, want to have a conversation with you and want to understand, Like I said, I don't have any of all of the answers. I don't have those experiences. I have disposable income and I can shop for food and I can jump in my car and go to my local grocery store. But a lot of people don't have that. So we all have like a lot of learning and unlearning to do, right? And even just some of the work that we've done, just going down all these different rabbit holes, has just been such a huge educational process. And I just feel like it's just made me better as a person to be able to understand someone else's perspective and experience, and it's that diversity of voices that's really going to be like the tapestry that makes this successful and secure for people, and it's got to start with conversation, right? And I just view this thing right now as the community's kitchen table, right? Like you're just gathering people around, and how do you how do you always express your care and concern for someone? Well, the oldest age thing is to share a meal, right? So you can learn about so much. You can learn so much from people about when you share a meal with them. So these conversations we hosted a screening at the library, and we had food and homemade lemonade and fresh picked tomatoes, and it's about sharing what you have and learning from other people.
So what was the film you guys screened?
It was, it's actually, I think it's about 10 years old at this point. It's called A Place at the Table.
Oh, does Jeff Bridges have
Yes.
a role in that?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Yes.
Actually, you sent out some clips that I watched.
Yeah.
And what we'll do is we'll provide the link to that in the description of this podcast so people can watch it.
Awesome.
Themselves. And how do people, you're saying that the Food Council is for everyone. So how does the average Schenectadian get involved in the Food Council?
Well, there are a couple of different avenues, I guess. We're working on getting the word out any way that we possibly can. Okay. But we, you can go to our website and sign up for there are different levels. It can be just you sign up for the newsletter and you just want to know what's going on.
Which website is that?
It is the Food Council. It was kind of thrown together right at the last second to get something out there. So it's a Canvas site, so it has a weird address.
Okay.
But we
Well,
can get
we'll
the
put that
link
in the
for
link
you.
as well.
Yeah. As we get that more solidified, we'll have a real address. But we have a QR code we've been handing out on all sorts of things. We've been trying to get, when people came to the screening event, we said our call to action is bring a neighbor with you next time, bring a friend with you, let someone know, let everybody know that this is for you. And we just want to get that message out. So we've got everything that we send out has a QR code on it. We had, it's all about, I get chills thinking about this, the collaborations and the support. As Aideen was talking about, we have all of these different resources, all of the food that was donated for that event. We also had Assemblyman Santa Barbara was able to work with CDTA and got bus passes that we handed out just in the community, for anyone who, if you want to come to this but you don't have a way, here's a bus pass for you. Like, we're trying to take away the barriers that people have to even participate.
And how did you connect with individuals who needed those bus passes? How did that process work?
Well, originally we had them available at our press conference, which I was really proud of this idea that came out of our group. That was strategically held it at City Hall on a Thursday when Jazz on Jay was happening and the farmers market was happening. So we were hoping there are food interested people in the area. Anyone who came, we announced it. These are some people in the audience. If you need a bus pass, go to them. And then any that were left over, we handed out we gave them to partners at Messiah Lutheran, the Rotterdam Community Center. I forget, I think Vail Urban or Schenectady Urban Farm had some. Yep. We had them around so that people who are really directly connected to the community members who may need it were able to distribute those.
That's really great.
And we acknowledge that none of this is perfect, but we are just jumping in like, okay, we will perfect this along the way.
Right.
But right now we're doing as much as we can. And if you have an idea, share it with us.
Well, inaction is not really acceptable anymore. It's like you have to just set the date, put it down on the calendar, roll up your sleeves and do it. And like, we'll figure it out. We're never going to be like the most buttoned down professional group, but we all have day jobs. We're all doing this, because we care. And there's been so many people that have donated so much time and energy and experience to this that it's heartwarming. I mean, you get a really good feeling by being involved. And even just somebody like Angelo Santa Barbara, we invited him to a meeting and then we just put him on the spot and he's like, well, what can I do to help? And we're like, join the steering committee. He's like, okay, I'm in. And he doesn't like dial it in. I mean, he shows up for every meeting, and if he's not there, he sends staff, and he, connects us to resources within the community. So, it's a lot of people rolling up their sleeves, and that is really that is hopeful. That is very hopeful.
And as far as reaching people, I just have to say an example that I love of just the extensive reach that we have and the value of everybody's opinions. We were talking in a group one time and we were talking about, Instagram and Facebook and a volunteer on the committee who's, an older neighbor. She was like, she held up her phone and she's like, I don't know how to use this. If you post something on, I don't know how to get on Instagram or even what that is. So, but it was very valuable to say, okay, we're not going to reach everyone who needs to be around the table by posting on Instagram. We've got to find other ways. So we're trying to reach everybody we can in every way that we can.
Well, we've got some ideas for you that we'll share.
We look forward to them.
So let's talk about the local grocery scene in Schenectady. We've been doing a series called Best Bodega, where we ask the community to tell us their favorite bodega. And so far we've gone to 2. And I have to say that Fabio Grocery
is the best.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable,
the best. Right?
Yeah. So they're on Albany Street. And they serve some really fantastic, I think it's Dominican food. And they have a beautiful array of really culturally appropriate, ethnic food that, serves that community. And I spent about an hour there one day, because I think his name is Frank, actually. And talked to him, and he knew 9 out of 10 people that were coming into that store. He knew something about them, or knew what they were looking for. Or this is the whole example. There are a lot of good folks connecting food in the community. We're not trying to replace them or change them. We're just trying to help further the good that they're doing. And he would be a great partner to get into other areas in Schenectady.
Yeah, and that's what we're finding when we're going out to the bodegas, that the owners know the people coming in. They're super friendly with them. But the one thing about Fabio that really struck me was the abundance of fresh produce and the fresh meat, too, and all of the frozen stuff. That place is huge. First of all, you would never know it from looking at the outside, but they're really doing an excellent job of bringing healthy food to the community and culturally appropriate food, like you mentioned. Does anybody want to talk about what that means to have culturally appropriate food available to people?
Well, I mean, if you give someone a Brussels sprout and they've never seen a Brussels sprout, what's the point, And when you pass out, processed food, I get that it's better than nothing, but I think that we can do better. And I think that Schenectady is such a vibrant, diverse city, and where else can you experience the diversity, the culture, than through food, right? So like that needs to be celebrated. The Guyanese population in Schenectady, you know, the all the different groups that are here have a story to tell around food. And, you know, whether it's, you know, specific to their culture, whether it's something that just is new to me, like that's so exciting. Like that needs to be celebrated. I loathe just the homogenous, you know, this is the set and this is what it is and it looks the same whether it's in Latham or it's in Schenectady or it's in Buffalo. Like our cities are so diverse and we really have to celebrate all those diverse voices.
I also think it's important to acknowledge that every culture has a nourishing food tradition. Like, I really prefer the word nourishing to healthy, because I think healthy is a very narrow and it's often informed by a very particular viewpoint. I prefer the word nourishing, and really every culture, every family has its own nourishing traditions, and they might look different in every household or whatever. And again, that's why we need that community input, because, you know, rather than anything being imposed on, you know, communities are already doing this. They already have this knowledge. You know, I work with farming. Again, you know, referring to our Guyanese community or our Yemeni community, or these are people who have a rich agricultural history, who know how to grow food. Maybe it's one generation back, maybe it's two, but, you know, that is, we don't necessarily need to teach anyone anything. Like,
I mean,
they already know. It's like, let's just, you know, facilitate that implementation of that.
Native American culture. I mean, like they've been taking care of the earth and, you know, growing food and working as a community long before we were here. So, you know, there is a lot of depth of knowledge and history, you know, within these cultures. And, you know, I love that you brought up that point about nourishing, because there are a lot of biases baked into just our individual experiences, you know? So like it's been a whole learning process for me. And I think it's amazing to understand, you know, some of the connotations some of these words have. So, and words are important, you know? So it's been a great process.
I think another point that it kind of really hit me, and it was about asking the community. I was at an event at SICM, and Amaury, the executive director, was talking about how, you know, if you give a family the food and they're making like comfort food. I mean, it's called comfort food for a reason, but if you don't have the spices to make it the way your family made it, is it as comforting? Is it nourishing, you know, emotionally, or like how you feel? And it kind of really hit me. And it was like, you know, due to, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with all the funding and all the, like, spices aren't covered by a lot of sources. And so they do a spice drive so that people have the spices they need to make their culturally appropriate comfort food. And I don't think that's too much to ask. I think that is how we're taking care of people. We listen to what makes them feel good and helping them in that way.
Exactly.
That's
and
super interesting.
That's from the bottom up. That's how that should work. That's how those conversations should happen.
Who is organizing the Spice Drive?
I think it's happened through SICM before. I'm not sure if it's a regular thing, but I know they do that. I think they were working with the Niskayuna Co-op to do that. They have a couple of different things going on. I think it's happened a few
We've
times.
got a lot going on.
Yeah.
We're a great partner in the community.
For sure.
Heather and I are doing survey work there tomorrow. I'm finally getting back to it.
So tell me what that looks like.
So we ask for permission to go set up a little table, and they distribute food every day, I think, except Tuesday. And we show up at 9:00. And even though, you know, there's enough food to go around, there's still a line that exists because there's just a lot of scarcity mentality around food and food access. And everybody's welcome, and you don't need to fill out anything, and you just show up and you can get whatever they have. And back when I first started this process, I asked the regional food bank, like, what was the best four-choice pantry? And they immediately said SICM. So when we developed the survey, we went and did survey work primarily at SICM, but we also did some of the school lunch locations. So, you know, every queues up and waits to get in. They let in a few people at a time, and they can choose what they want. So there's a bread table, and there's rolls, and there's Italian bread, and there's sliced bread, and they can choose one from each table. And then there's a whole produce section, and there's a conversation that happens with the volunteers behind the counter. It's like, hey, have you ever had prunes? These are local prunes. Have you ever tried sweet potatoes? We've got sweet potatoes here. These are in season. This just came in today. And people are like, it's respectful, and it's also illuminating because not everybody's seen a fresh plum. So, what do you do with it? How do you enjoy it? And so while people are waiting in line or assembling their bags, we just go through the survey work and ask. And we have some things we have some little handouts for the co-op, and we hand out some seeds, or we do little temporary tattoos with the kids. So we're giving them something. So MVP is one of our sponsors. So they gave us a ton of reusable grocery bags and hand sanitizers. So we hand out some bags and some sanitizers and some seeds. And that starts a whole conversation because people are so excited to tell you about the flowers that they grow in their garden, or what they're putting on their porch, or what kind of peppers they're growing in their, on their porch and in a container, So it is literally one of the more enriching things that I've done. I think I have more people praying for me that have gone through that SICM than I could possibly imagine. And the people are just so warm and generous, and they're grateful to SICM. They're happy to be there. They're grateful for everything that they have. And it's amazing. It really is. It's an amazing space.
That sounds like a lovely experience
for
everyone
really
involved.
It really is.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
So if each of you would just go around and say what your hopes are for the community, and how an individual person in the city could help. Who would like to start?
Oh, I'd be happy to start. So I hope people will join the Food Council. I hope people will come to some of our events and help us form, what this organization is and how it could best inform the decision makers. I really want people to know that I think the Food Council has the opportunity to help be transformational in this community. So join, give your opinion, sign up for a work group, attend a meeting, grab the newsletter. That's one thing. Join the Electric City Food Co-op. We need a grocery store in downtown Schenectady, and we're currently looking at a site on Erie Boulevard, and we're looking to really make it a space that's engaged. So in addition to a grocery store, we're working on a collaborative space above that, and we've got a meeting with SUNY Schenectady coming. We've got Rebecca coming from Farm to School. We've got the Schenectady Foundation coming. Angela Santa Barbara's coming. And we really want to say, how can we have this food space that's the community's food space? So whether there's a commercial kitchen that we can rent out, we can host entrepreneur boot camps, so we can take people from concept to fully viable consumer packaged goods. So how do you go from an idea or a barbecue sauce that you're making at the farmer's market to a commercially viable consumer packaged goods? How can we do cooking classes to help people, cook on a budget, or explore other food, ideas to try cooking. Everybody loves to learn how to cook things, right? And that was some of the challenges when we talked with Honest Weight, was like, okay, you can give people these things, but if they don't know how to cook them, what is the point, So they can join the co-op, and they can help us make a creative space on top of that co-op so that it represents the community and the community can use it. And it has a venue that the schools can use as a space, all the way to encourage, the college program with their hospitality and culinary program. It's that connection, right? Mm-hmm. So between the older kids and the younger kids, and then in the community, and then how do you encourage kids to want to stay and create a job here and do something with their hospitality or culinary degree? Or do something in manufacturing. All these things will strengthen our community, and having a better balance downtown, not just high-end apartments, but, places where you can afford to get food and feed your family are important.
That sounds like it would be a great resource for the community. I love the idea of introducing a kid with an idea to the processes that they would need to know to become a successful entrepreneur. That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Aideen?
Well, my real hope is that Schenectady is a well-nourished, strong community. And I obviously work with kids. I love kids. And so if I had one wish that could come true through the Food Council is that none of our city's children go to bed hungry or come to school hungry, that all of their families have easy access to nourishing foods and the ways to prepare them and store them and all of that. And it will take all of us to make that happen, not just the school district, but all of us.
Is there something that you would like to say to the parents of the students that you work with about greater participation or the value in participation?
Well, I think our parents are great. Our families are great. I think, all of us have challenges. So I think, but if anyone is interested in participating with the Farm to School program, we now have 15 school gardens around the district. And we can always use hands in those gardens to help maintain them. And if, you have an interest in volunteering for that or getting involved in my program in any way, please do reach out. It's Henriksen, HENRIKSENR at SchenectadySchools.org.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mouthful.
Christy?
Well, I think along with the message that I always drive home about this is for everybody and we want everyone to be involved, I would really love to see that the environment is such that people feel that way, so that people, that people are kind to each other. And that we can all understand that let's not judge people for where they are. Let's understand where they are and work together so that we can all be in a place where we can be nourished and we can be healthy and we can feel good and be a great part of this community. And I just hope that everyone feels, I would love it if everyone could feel that way and feel like they just cannot wait to be part of the solution.
That's awesome. So everyone is welcome at the Food Council. So I want to say thank you so much to all of our guests today for this great conversation. I learned a lot, and I hope that our listeners will learn a lot as well. And we will make sure to provide the opportunity to connect with each of you in the podcast. So thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you next time for your Schenectady Stories.